Across America, the condo market is quietly falling apart. We've talked about the housing declines happening in South Florida and Texas in recent uploads, but new data is showing the worst of this decline is happening in this subset of the housing market. It's an absolute disaster, and it's not just Florida and Texas in the case of condos, it's spreading everywhere, going from a regional problem to a national crisis. Most people in real estate, whether buyers, sellers, or investors, focus on single-family homes, but keep in mind that condos are where speculation runs hottest, and this subset often serves as the canary in the coal mine for the rest of the market. Back in 2007, the crash didn't start with suburban homes. It started with condos in Florida. By 2006, well before the national collapse, signs of distress were already flashing. Lee County had climbed to 14 months of condo inventory that summer. The Miami Case-Shiller Index, typically a lagging indicator, had already begun its descent by January 2007. South Florida's condo market was ground zero. It was so overheated and so central to the unfolding crisis that even Warren Buffett brought it up during Berkshire Hathaway's 2006 annual meeting months before the phrase housing crash entered the national conversation. Take a listen.
When you have investment type holdings or speculation type holdings, when you in effect have had the day traders, of the internet move into the day trading of condos, then you get a market that can move in a big way. First it sort of stops and then it kind of reopens. Real estate is different than stocks. If you own 100 shares of General Motors, it's going to trade on Monday and that's what it's worth, and you can't kid yourself about it. But if you own real estate, there's a great tendency to think about the one that sold down the street a few months ago, and there's a great tendency to think, you only need one buyer who hasn't gotten the word that things have slowed down, and you'll make your sale. I can tell you that in Dade and Broward County, for example, in Florida, where the average condo is about $500,000, if you go back to December of 2004, there were less than 9,000 condos listed for sale, and I think 2,900 of them sold in the month. So you were turnover one every 3 months, less than that. Now the listings are up to 30,000 and the sales are down to under 2,000 a month.
With that in mind, it's almost impossible to ignore the echoes in what's happening right now. Shockingly, the numbers we're seeing today are already in crash territory. It's just not being talked about in the national media for a variety of reasons, but more and more we are starting to see the cracks. The New York Times just ran multiple stories about the housing market declining, and one of them is this piece on the worst market in America, Punta Gorda. And if we dig into Punta Gorda and go into the condo market there, you can really get a sense of just how bad things really are. It's truly a disaster, and I'm not just sensationalizing for clicks here. I'm going to give you multiple real-life examples of how these condos are falling apart value-wise. It truly is a new 2008. And just to be clear, I didn't dig through obscure data or cherry-pick rare cases. I simply opened a Zillow map of Punta Gorda, zoomed in, and started scanning for clusters of recent sales. What I found was eye-opening, and this isn't just a Florida thing. We're seeing similar patterns across the country, even in supposedly stable markets like the Northeast. But let's stay focused on South Florida for now. And here in Punta Gorda Isles on the northwest side of the city, there's something happening that perfectly captures the state of the condo market right now. If you zoom in on this cluster of waterfront condos, you'll notice something strange. They're all in the same development, listed around the same time, and yet the asking prices are all over the place. One is listed at $825,000. Just a couple doors down, $475,000. At first glance, you might think there's a good reason. Maybe one's an end unit or recently remodeled or has an extra bedroom. But as I started comparing them side by side, I realized the differences were relatively minor. Nothing that would explain a $350,000 gap or a 42% price difference. And that's when it hit me. This isn't about square footage, upgrades, or location. This is about denial. Sellers are refusing to accept what the market is telling them, and the result is chaos. As each new listing undercuts the last, prices begin to free fall in real time. So let's break it down. I'll show you exactly what's happening inside this one community and why it's a warning for condo markets across the country. Let's start with a unit on 320 Seabreeze Drive. Remodeled, nice unit listed at $745,000. That makes it one of the most expensive units in the whole community, and maybe it's top of the line, but remember, just 2 doors down at 324 Seabreeze Drive, another unit with similar specs is listed at $495,000. That's a $250,000 gap for condos in the same development. Keep going and it gets weirder. 112 Palmetto Lane bought for $535,000 in 2023 post-hurricane. It's been sitting on the market for 2 years. 7 price cuts. They even tried to raise the price again this spring, and it's now listed for $525,000. Still not selling. Another unit on that same stretch, 311 Bay Harbor, sold for $535,000 in 2019, and after 4 price cuts, it's right back to the pre-2020 levels. Then there's 211 Bay Harbor, 8 price cuts, and it still hasn't sold. This isn't a market with healthy variance. This is panic, denial, and confusion all colliding. Sellers throwing out numbers hoping one sticks, while buyers just sit back and watch the bottom fall out. This isn't a one-off. These examples are all from one small pocket of Punta Gorda, but you can find similar setups across Florida, even in the so-called stable markets in the Northeast. Take Cleveland, for example, a market that might surprise you. It's actually one of the strongest in the country. Inventory is still well below pre-2020 levels, and prices for single-family homes haven't shown much weakness at all. But even here in one of the so-called resilient markets, the condo sector is cracking. I'm going to obscure the names of some of these communities for privacy, but what's happening in Cleveland mirrors the same exact pattern we saw in Punta Gorda. You've got one small block downtown with 8 condos for sale, all competing with each other, all slashing prices, and still no buyers. One unit originally purchased in 2019 for $418,000 hit the market this past January at $495,000. After 4 price cuts, it's now listed at $399,000, no offers. Just down the street, another unit was listed for $550,000. After 8 price cuts, it's now in the lower 400s, still no buyers. From the seller's point of view, that's a 30% drop in just a few years. That's not a cooling, that's a crash, and this is happening in a city where single-family home prices are still climbing. So what does that tell you? It tells you this isn't just a Florida thing. It's not just Texas or the coast. This condo collapse is spreading quietly, even in markets that look strong on paper. And it's being masked by the broader single-family home numbers that everyone's focused on. What happens next, nobody knows, but the trend is clear. Something is cracking in the condo markets across the country. Thank you for watching. As always, please make sure you hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoyed the content, and leave a comment below if you're a buyer, seller, or investor in any of the condo markets we just covered.